Day of the Dead in Mexico is one of the most important cultural traditions, and each city and state offers a unique experience for celebrating. It was really tough to choose where we wanted to spend our very first Dia de Muertos, but ultimately we chose Aguascalientes for a very special reason. It is important that Dia de Muertos is treated with love, respect, and an understanding that it is not Mexican Halloween, but a sacred remembering and a celebration of family and ancestors. People often think this holiday celebrates death, but in actuality it celebrates life, the life of loved ones who've passed, while at the same time respectfully honoring and preserving this important tradition that dates back thousands of years and is the religious and cultural legacy of the Mexicas, the Maya, the Tlaxcaltec, Chichimec, and other native peoples of what is today known as Mexico, as well as indigenous traditional territories that are divided by today's contemporary borders. This is why there are regional differences as to how it is celebrated, and the manner in which it is celebrated is influenced by families' religion and their tribe-specific history and customs. As a result of the European and Spanish invasion and forced conversion to Christianity and Catholicism, and the ongoing colonization of what is today Mexico, Dia de Muertos now takes place on November 1 and 2, having been merged with All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day. Typically, November 1 is to honor children and infants, known as Dia de los Santos Inocentes. November 2nd honors adults and is known as Dia de Muertos, and as Dia de los Fieles Difuntos, the Day of the Faithful Dead. Before Mexico's invasion by Spaniards, these holy days for the Mexica took place in what approximates as today's month of June/August, and they were celebrated for an entire month. Some say those festivities were dedicated to Mictecacihuatl, or otherwise known as the Lady of the Dead. And they say that she corresponds to the modern-day Catrina, the iconic character created in 1910 by illustrator Jose Guadalupe Posada. But that's unlikely, as La Catrina has her own interesting story.
Did you know that La Catrina was not originally associated with el Dia de Muertos? Origins of La Catrina stems from political unrest, and she was and is a political warrior who arose as a truth teller from the sharp mind and pen from satirical and political cartoonist by the name of Jose Guadalupe Posada. Jose Guadalupe Posada was born in Aguascalientes in 1852. Posada is the original artist of the famous La Calavera Garbancera. Posada became known for using skulls and bones to critique government corruption and call out inequities between the rich and the poor. During a time when many in Mexico were illiterate, the message of political cartoons could be easily understood even without reading the articles. Many credit Posada with raising the political and social consciousness of the common laborer, exposing social injustice at the time when most at that level were blind to it. He used La Calavera Garbancera to poke fun of Mexicans of native heritage who strove to look European, and those who focus on acquiring wealth and turn their back on their community and indigenous values. Garbanceros or garbanceras refer to people who farm garbanzos, chickpeas, for a living, which was often the job of poor indigenous peoples. Posada used skulls to represent humans to remind people that no matter what you wear or how European you try to be, one day you'll end up looking like the rest, in bones.
The skulls and skeletons have been a part of indigenous celebrations for thousands of years, and it's only relatively recent that La Catrina has become emblematic of the Day of the Dead celebrations. And this is a result of artistic influence, political statements, and long-standing traditions that merge together.
So in case you're wondering, how did La Calavera Garbancera become La Catrina? They're very similar, but they're not the same. The original drawing is just from the neck up to her head, displaying the wealth of the bourgeoisie of the time. But since Diego Rivera in 1945, inspired by Posada, decided to make a mural in Alameda representing the important people of Mexico, he decided to add Frida Kahlo himself and finish off La Calavera Garbancera. He ended up drawing her with an entire body and named her La Catrina. It is from that representation that La Catrina is very popular and has become a staple for el Dia de Muertos.
Many people make altars or ofrendas in their homes to honor their loved ones who have died. Every ofrenda also includes the 4 elements: water, wind, earth, and fire. Water is left in a pitcher or a cup so the spirits can quench their thirst from their long journey from the underworld. Papel picado, or traditional paper banners, represent the wind. Earth is represented by food, especially bread. Candles and sometimes salt are often left in the form of a cross to represent the cardinal directions, so the spirit can find their way. Every state in Mexico has its own particular way of setting up their ofrenda. In some regions, you can find a flat surface with all of the elements on it, while in others you can find several levels. The most common ones have 3 levels, which represent heaven, earth, and the underworld. With more elaborate ofrendas, you can find up to 7 levels. A calavera is a skull, and a calavera de azúcar is a sugar skull that's often placed on the altar and can have the name of the deceased person inscribed on the forehead. The cempasúchil, or known as la flor de muerto, is a flower used in the Day of the Dead altars to decorate the graves and the ofrendas. It grows plentifully at this time of year in Mexico, and its pungent odor is said to attract the spirits who come to visit their mortal loved ones on this day. This flower, used since ancient times for its medicinal purposes, brings a unique color to the altar that makes the spirits feel joyful and peaceful. You can also find them in orange and purple, representing the earth and grief. They are also thought to guide the spirits thanks to their potent and fresh scent. In some regions of Mexico, sand sculptures or tapestries, otherwise known as tapetes de arena, are a vital part of the celebration. These are created with sand or wood chips and pigment, sometimes other elements such as seeds, beans, flower petals, sawdust, and may depict either religious themes, but most often depict death in a playful manner. The tradition of making tapetes originated in Spain as part of the Catholic feast of Corpus Christi, eventually leading up to Good Friday and Holy Week. The event marks the death and resurrection of Christ, and the tapetes for these celebrations depict scenes of the Passion. So there are some connections between Christianity, Catholicism, and the Día de Muertos. Copal incense was burned in Mesoamerica in ancient times and is still burned for special ceremonies and is often placed on or near the Day of the Dead altars as another olfactory element to draw in the spirits. The word copal comes from the Nahuatl word copali, which means incense. Copali incense comes from the copal tree. It symbolizes the transformation from the physical, the tree, to the supernatural, the perfumed smoke. The rising smoke takes the prayers to the heavens and the gods. Pre-Hispanic civilizations such as that of the Aztecs and Mayans placed it in a clay incense burner as food for the gods. In this ritual, the copal was offered to the 4 cardinal points and to the sun to guarantee the protection of the people and gratitude for the crops. It is placed in the offerings of the Day of the Dead as a purifier of the environment, which allows the spirits of our loved ones to enter the homes without risk. When we were inside the Casa de Cultura enjoying the altar and filming, we heard music through a window and realized that the public library is connected by a wall to the Casa de la Cultura. So we made our way over and entered an event that is put on by a group of widows who lost their husbands to the pandemic. And between the altar, the women emotional and dressed as Catrinas, and the beautiful music, Kevin and I started tearing up and thinking of the loved ones we've lost, not just in recent years or in past years, but in this past year and a half. In the pandemic, we've both lost several family members. I lost my dad, I lost a cousin to cancer, I lost my grandfather, and they were all gone too soon. And I know that Kevin can tell you that he's lost more than a few members to the pandemic. And so we want to dedicate this video in their honor, as well as the remembrance and the love that we have in our hearts we put into these videos, but we also share our love for our family members with you via these videos.
Se fueron y nos hicieron saber que la vida es más efímera de lo que creíamos. Pareciera que duró tan poco. pero ese poco ha sido la más grande muestra de amor y felicidad, disfrutando todo lo que se tenía. Hoy intentamos aferrarnos a la cuerda, esa que nos sujeta y no nos permite caer. No vemos el más allá, solo el aquí y el ahora, sujetadas a la esperanza, ese don de Dios que nos atrae a la vida. Ahora, cada una de nosotras les decimos: te fuiste, y lo que me hace más fuerte es saber que no fallecemos. Si lo vemos de otra manera, porque hoy vives en mí para siempre, en memoria de todos los que se han ido en esta pandemia. Los invitamos a que nos acompañen un momento a hacer honor a nuestro altar.
Recuérdame, hoy me tengo que ir, mi amor. Recuérdame, no llores, por favor. Te llevo en mi corazón y cerca me tendrás. A solas yo te cantaré, soñando en regresar. Recuérdame, aunque tenga que emigrar. Recuérdame, si mi guitarra oyes llorar, ella con su triste canto te acompañará, hasta que en mis brazos tú estés. Recuérdame, cuando tengo que ir, mi amor. Recuérdame, no llores, por favor. Te llevo en mi corazón y cerca me tendrás. A solas yo te cantaré, soñando en regresar. Recuérdame, aunque tenga que emigrar. Recuérdame, si mi guitarra oyes llorar, ella con su triste canto te acompañará, hasta que en mis brazos tú estés.